I want to also take this opportunity to acknowledge our sponsors. We would like to thank our host city, eThekwini Municipality, together with our Black Platinum sponsor, Moonsoft, our Platinum sponsor, Fleet Horizon, our conference partners, which are Rosebank College and the KZN Bureau. We know that partnerships like this and collaborations like this is what makes platforms like this possible. So we extend our sincere thanks and appreciation to you for your valuable contribution to making this event a success. Just another announcement, specific for today, to note that the Women's Forum launch will take place at the end of today's sessions, which is at 4:30 in room 11, and all ladies are invited to join us for a cocktail session for this. It will be a short program, not more than an hour, so we would like for all our ladies to be a part of this. As an organization, CIGFARO prides itself not just with the caliber of leadership that we maintain in the organization, but also the caliber of professionalism that we bring to the table. And this morning we are privileged to share this platform with our distinguished speakers and panelists. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome them and thank them for their time and contributions, even in preparation for what will be presented on this platform this morning. I would ask for you to kindly bear with me as I will now introduce them and share a short bio on each of them, just to illustrate the caliber of professionalism and expertise that we are bringing to today's discussions. As our key speaker, we have Annette van Schalkwyk. She's representing, or she's from Standard Bank this morning, and she will be our key speaker. Annette is the head of public sector lending for Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. In her role at the bank, she's responsible for solutions for public sector lending needs, including medium-term loans, vehicle finance, overdrafts, fleet cards, and credit cards, amongst others. She has extensive public sector experience spanning over 28 years. She previously filled roles such as the chief accountant, finance manager, executive manager, and director of capital budget and financial accounting at the Ekurhuleni municipality, and chief financial officer at the Midvaal local municipality. Annette was also with the consulting firm Ultimax, where she filled the role of associate director advisory. She boasts the following qualifications: a BCom accounting from the University of Johannesburg, a certificate in municipal finance management issued by local government CETA, Association of Project Managers Group certified PPP professional. She's also a registered associate general accountant of South Africa with SAICA and an MBA degree from Encosa. Let's give her a round of applause this morning. Part of our panelists this morning, we have Mawanda Nsanana from Inzalo EMS. He is an expert in project management. Mawanda has significant experience in public sector performance, policy implementation and monitoring and evaluation. He has partnered with numerous municipalities, public entities, and government departments, offering strategic support to senior management at all levels. In his role, he ensures compliance with GRAP by compiling fixed asset registers and preparing property, plant, and equipment financial disclosures for audits, adhering to PFMA, MFMA, and GRAP standards. He has effectively led teams in developing and executing municipal finance improvement and turnaround strategies, tackling financial reporting inefficiencies, and enhancing asset maintenance plans to align with integrated development plans and annual performance plans. His focus areas also include infrastructure reporting and project financing. With over 15 years in the public sector, he has successfully managed complex business operations and diverse teams, consistently delivering high-quality outcomes. Before joining Inzalo, he headed the asset management unit at Maibuye Transport Corporation and worked at Mobesco Africa from 2017 to 2023. His earlier career includes positions at PwC. So let's give him a round of applause this morning. If you can just wave for our, thank you. We are also privileged this morning to have Daniel Nolte. He's representing CIGFARO this morning, and he possesses professional memberships of two well-known organizations, one of CIPA and the other of CIGFARO, the latter since 1988. He was accredited as a trainer or mentor for the then KwaZulu-Natal Training Board in 1995, and recently facilitated and presented the Local Government Asset Management Improvement Program organized by CIGFARO and the Center for Municipal Asset Management. From a financial management perspective, he prepared budgets and annual financial statements for many municipalities in the 80s and 90s, and was contracted in the position of CFO to several municipalities, and later compiled financial plans for IDPs working with development partners. Having previously worked for the Auditor General during the period of 1980 to 1985, he managed statutory audits at various municipalities during the 90s on behalf of an auditing firm, and later performed as an internal auditor and risk management. He has a vast wealth and knowledge in regards to asset management, and we are thankful for his contributions that will be made today. His resume is actually a bit too long for me to read out completely, but do note that he will be bringing a wealth of experience to this platform. Let's give him a hand this morning. We are also privileged this morning to have Tembisa Nompula from eThekwini Municipality. She is a professional accountant currently working at eThekwini Municipality as a revenue manager in the Department of Accounts Management. She has over 15 years of experience in finance and a successful history in finance and customer services environment in both the private and public sector. She holds a postgraduate diploma in internal auditing from Durban University of Technology, a postgraduate diploma in professional accountant in practice with Facet and CIPA. Her areas of expertise are financial management, financial forecasting, debt management, leadership, and interpretation of legislation. Tembisa currently manages a revenue section with over 200 staff complement, and she is a self-motivated, reliable, and hardworking person who enjoys working with other people and learning new things. Let's give her a round of applause this morning. And last but certainly not least, we have Trevor Mpeti from Intiiso Consulting. Trevor is a highly skilled revenue enhancement specialist with extensive experience in civil engineering, particularly in water demand management, revenue enhancement, project management, and credit control. He holds a Bachelor of Technology in Civil Engineering from Vaal University of Technology and is a certified PMP candidate. Originally from Zimbabwe, Trevor is now a permanent resident of South Africa, and we are thankful for the contributions that he makes. As a managing director and senior project manager at Intiiso Consulting, Trevor has led major projects focused on revenue management, strategy development, and stakeholder engagement since 2016. He also held key roles in Arukon Group, Net Group South Africa, and Catholic Relief Services, gaining expertise in water engineering, project implementation, and credit control. Let's give him a round of applause this morning. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Annette, who will do our key address. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leander, for that introduction. What a privilege to be here this morning. Honourable Mayors, members of mayoral committees, municipal managers, chief financial officers, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a privilege for me to be here this morning to address you at this conference marking 95 years of the existence of CIGFARO. And let me also make use of this opportunity to acknowledge the role that CIGFARO has played in my own career. And I would like to encourage the young professionals that are here with us today to also embark on your own journey following the CIGFARO protocols, ensuring that you attend as many of the activities that are presented by CIGFARO as possible, to also allow yourself the growth opportunities that is offered. We are here today to talk about revenue-generating assets that are required to deliver services. Colleagues, and I think it's such an important aspect that came through all of the papers yesterday. Service delivery. We are here for service delivery. We are serving the people. We need to ensure that we take care of the funds that we are dealing with, and we need to ensure that we instill the disciplines that are so urgently needed to improve the services to the communities that we serve. And of course, infrastructure is a key ingredient for service delivery. We cannot render services without infrastructure. So in my paper today, I'm really going to focus on, let me just see how this one works. It's not moving the slide. Is there one of the technical guys that can maybe just assist? Thank you. So we're not going to do a lot of discussions today on theory. We're going to really talk about three key things. The current state of service delivery. I want to stand still a bit on the root causes of asset failure, because in its heart, service delivery failures are asset failures. And then I want to talk about options for us to renew the economic infrastructure that is required. Thank you. Let's look at the state of service delivery. Now, I think we've been so conditioned over the years to see media releases on poor service delivery, on service delivery failures, on public protests, that we are almost starting to read past it and see past it. But I think when we look at the media, and this is just a few clips that I took out during the last week, that is talking to service delivery within the country, and it's not prevalent only in one province, it's spread across the country, that the frustrations of the community is becoming more and more evident. And when we talk about the community, we don't only talk about the residents in the communities that we serve, but also businesses. I think we are all mindful of the major media releases that we got around the situation on Clover when they left Lichtenburg and moved to the city of eThekwini. For what reason? Nothing other than lack of service delivery, that did not provide the services that they require for them to continue with their operations within a municipal area. And that, of course, is quite a big thing for us to consider in the management of our municipalities. Are we attracting business, or are we not attracting business? Do we have an environment that is enabling for businesses to thrive in our communities, to create jobs within our communities, and to address the poverty issues that we do have within our municipal areas? We can go to the next slide, please. So that's the media, and I think all of you can say, the media is always looking at the negative pictures. It's always looking at, the worst case scenarios. But what does the AG says? The AG, as one of our key stakeholders, actually says that public frustration at poor service delivery continues to grow, as reported by various civil society organizations, and can be seen from frequent service delivery protests. Businesses are closing down because of persistent challenges with water, electricity, and road infrastructure, further hampering economic development. This is the last thing that we want. And this is credible words coming from the Auditor General in the 2023 General Report on the MFMA audit. She continues to say that the basic services that the people of South Africa are entitled to receive cannot be delivered without properly maintained infrastructure that remains in a safe working condition throughout its lifespan. However, the existing infrastructure has not kept pace with the country's growing demands, and there is a backlog both in the construction of new infrastructure and the maintaining of existing infrastructure. So the challenge is twofold. It's maintenance, but it's also the creation of new infrastructure. And let's look a little bit about the root causes. You can go to the next slide, please. And I think there's a number of root causes that we're dealing with. And yes, when we talk about the Auditor General and we talk about audit findings, we know that the asset register is always going to come up, and we're going to know that there's challenges in many municipalities with compliance to GRAP 17. But the question is that just an accounting issue? We know we've got incomplete or inaccurate asset registers. Is that the problem of the CFO only? Do we know as an engineer what infrastructure assets we do have in the ground? What is the condition of those assets? Can we maintain assets if we don't even know what we have, if our asset registers are inadequate? Do we have incorrect assessment of useful lives in our asset registers? And is it a problem? Why is it a problem? If we don't know what the accurate condition of the assets are, what is the remaining expected useful life? How can we plan for growth and expansion? How can we plan to replace the infrastructure when it is no longer in a condition to be used for service delivery? Inadequate maintenance plans. In my career, I've seen many maintenance plans on an Excel table that talks about, we need to do A, B, and C. But are those implemented? Are they supported by sufficient budgetary provision? Are we thinking about preventative maintenance? Are we thinking about predicted maintenance that says that after 50,000 kilometers, these are the type of failures that you can expect from your assets? Are we doing planned maintenance? Condition-based maintenance? Or is the default position that we go back to emergency or corrective maintenance? Colleagues, the asset register is one of the key items that needs to be in your municipality, and it should not be a sole responsibility of the finance department. Indeed, it is a tool that is to be used by engineers on a daily basis. As we manage our infrastructure, as we deal with our planning for the maintenance, repair and renewal of these infrastructure items, the asset register needs to be core to those discussions. Then do we have sufficient budgetary provision? And not just budgetary provision, but actual resources backing those budgets. Do we have funded budgets? That indicates to us that where there is a proper management plan in place, where there's proper asset registers, noting the condition of the assets, noting the expected useful life, to the condition that one would expect to see them, is it backed by proper budgetary provision? If not, what's the root causes around that? Do we have tariffs that are fully cost reflective? And I think this is one of the issues that we need to reflect on. Where we are saying that we do not have a tariff that takes note of all of the cost elements to maintain that asset over its useful life, and to also provide for the replacement of that asset at the end of its economic life, we are not having tariffs that is going to help us to keep our municipality financially sustainable, and that's going to assist us in service delivery going forward. I'm going to talk about, a bit of a debate that we've got across public sector, and that is non-cash items, and predominantly one that's related to financial issues within the asset register that we're dealing with, being depreciation. Now, a lot of people would think that depreciation is there because it's a GRAP 17 requirement. But we don't have to worry about it, because it's not a cash item. When we look at funding our budgets, when we look at the bottom line in terms of our budgets, what is the cash inflows versus what is the cash outflows? Must we always think that depreciation is a non-cash item? Or is it time that we shift our lens away from thinking that depreciation is a GRAP 17 requirement? It is a non-cash item. It doesn't go into our cash flow statement, so we shouldn't be too concerned about it. Or should we start thinking of depreciation as a core element of our cost drivers in setting our cost-reflective tariffs? Colleagues, you all know what depreciation is. We all understand the accounting theory behind depreciation. But do we all have a lens in terms of the powerfulness of depreciation and the utilization of that in setting reserves aside for the replacement of the asset once it reaches the end of its economic life? In terms of fairness to our communities on our tariff setting and taxing policies, are we ensuring that the generation that is benefiting from the asset, that is enjoying the services that the asset brings forth, are they contributing to the full extent to the cost of those assets? I'm going to just use a basic example of a vehicle to illustrate to you the importance of depreciation and the importance of utilizing depreciation as part of your cash planning going forward. If you've got a vehicle and its useful life is 5 years, and indeed the municipality is using this as a service delivery vehicle over 5 years, of course it's one of the key components of the cost driver of the service. The maintenance of the vehicle, the operating cost associated with the vehicle, is part of your cost, but so is the capital cost, represented by depreciation. The community, in effect, consumes 1/5 of the vehicle on an annual basis through service delivery. And that 1/5 of the asset that has been used up during the year needs to be set aside so that at the end of the 5 years, you have that amount available to replace the asset. Of course, bar issues such as inflationary increases and the like. If you've got a robust policy that deals with setting your tariffs in a manner that is fully cost reflective, managing those resources where it is utilized for the intended purpose, it is set aside in a reserve, be it a capital replacement reserve or ring-fenced within your accumulated surplus, to ensure that that reserves in cash becomes available to replace the asset. That will surely assist you to become less reliant on government grants, and with your infrastructure to become less reliant on other funding sources that you need in a municipality. Are we looking at ineffective procurement processes and the impact that they may have on our cost-reflective tariffs? Are we maybe charging too much so that we cannot have tariffs that are affordable to the community? And then we say we can't have cost-reflective tariffs because it's too high. But back at the ranch, we're sitting with a procurement challenge where we're not paying the right price for the right commodities, and therefore thinking that we can't have cost-reflective tariffs because it's not going to be affordable to the communities. But once we reassess our procurement practices and we realize that we are paying inflated prices and we can start addressing those, we can start moving towards cost-reflective tariffs, and we can start moving towards a tariff that is a true reflection of what the economic cost of the service is. Our debt collection processes. Are we rigorous in our debt collection processes, taking, of course, note of our indigent residents to ensure that they are protected, but looking at those who can afford to pay and should pay? Do we have rigorous processes that the component of non-collection is not so onerous on the paying customers that we are squeezing the middle class into areas of not affordability because we are sitting with so many cost elements loaded into the tariff that are not contributing any productive value into the rendering of the service? And then, of course, I think we all struggle with insufficient resources to renew and replace assets or to expand the asset base. And here we need to think about issues such as the renewal of the assets. National Treasury is asking of us to spend 40% of our capital budget on the renewal of assets. Are we indeed doing that? Replacement of assets. How do we provide for the replacement of assets? We spoke about depreciation. If you don't have that in place yet, knowing that it's going to be a process of phasing in, because it's a lot of changes that you need to make in your funding policy to ensure that your tariffs remain affordable whilst you are restructuring. And then how do we deal with greenfield projects, completely new projects, new infrastructure that is needed to expand the generation of revenue by the implementation of revenue generating assets in greenfield areas? We can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to touch on a few items that we can consider, Madam Chair, and I'm conscious of time. I'm keeping a close eye on time, and I think, please go to the next slide. And I want to talk about two types of funding that is available to the communities, the municipalities to make use of. And let's start with projects, let's start with infrastructure, and let's start with how do we deal with brownfields projects and greenfield projects. Greenfield projects, of course, being new developments that comes with a completely ring-fenced cash flow, and our brownfield developments that is looking at existing assets that needs to be renewed. Now, the typical process is that we look at revenue-generating assets, and we look at social assets. And the funding thereof is dealt with differently. Social infrastructure, typically grant funding is utilised, our MIC funding and associated funding sources, to ensure that those social assets that are required to ensure a integrated social development, integrated human settlements, that those assets are provided, but we know they're not revenue generating. We know we're not going to generate sufficient cash flows directly from that asset to consider project finance. And then, of course, we want to look at our internally generated funds that we just spoke about through your proper tariff setting processes, through having cost-reflective tariffs inclusive of your non-cash items, that those internally generated funds be utilised for your social infrastructure and to some extent brownfield projects where you are renewing and replacing assets. And then when we look at economic infrastructure, we really want to say economic infrastructure should not necessarily be funded by grant funding. It will, in the first instance, where there is an external developer available, we've got developer contributions that is available to us, but I'm going to focus here on new infrastructure that is installed at the initiative of the municipality and not a developer. And then we really look at funding sources such as your balance sheet funding, and then, of course, project finance. Project finance is a very important project source when you look at greenfields development, where you can illustrate that the cash flows of the new infrastructure that you are installing will be sufficient to repay the financial obligations associated with the lending, and also be sufficient to cover the operating cost and then to show a profit or at least a break-even solution. So greenfields developments is so important for us to attract new businesses into our communities, into our municipalities, and we don't always have the funds available for that. So with your developer funding, think about how can you strategize utilizing your balance sheet as one option, or utilizing the project and the cash flows of the project as a second option in terms of securing external borrowings. And then, other than infrastructure, let's look at vehicles. If you can go to the next slide, please. Vehicles, of course, slightly different than infrastructure. It's got a far shorter lifespan, and you want to look at a funding source that really reflects the shorter lifespan of the asset so that you can maximize your value to the community. Various options available when you look at vehicle finance. You can start with, of course, where you do have cash resources available, outright purchase. We can look at installment sale agreements of between 3 to 5 years or even longer for specialized equipment that matches the term of the loan with the life of the asset, and that, of course, allows you to renew your fleet so that you can improve on service delivery. Not everybody can take up an installment sale agreement. We do have, of course, with us the municipal debt relief scheme, and some municipalities cannot take up lending. For those, there's, of course, always an operating lease option without transfer of ownership that can be considered. This is an opportunity for you to renew your fleet, to really focus on service delivery while still being compliant to the regulations associated with your debt relief. Then, of course, we've got full maintenance rental. Colleagues, in many municipalities are struggling with maintenance. Many municipalities have got workshops that are not efficient, that are costing a lot of money, and we often hear of vehicles that are standing in the workshops for weeks at end. There cannot be round collections on solid waste because why? The vehicles are standing in the workshops waiting for maintenance. A full maintenance rental, where the maintenance is the responsibility of the service provider, is an option that you can consider. And then for those that have got an in-house fleet that is already effectively managed, other than the maintenance portion, maybe you can consider having your own fleet, providing your fuel, but having a managed maintenance solution. And there are various forms of managed maintenance, including or excluding your fleet cards, and various different options that's going to assist you to ensure that in a cost-effective manner, you are maintaining your service delivery vehicles so that you can continue to render those services. So those are some of the options. Colleagues, I'm going to conclude. You can go to the last slide, please. I think for us to consider here today, and what the panel is going to talk about today, is the poor state of service delivery assets leading to asset failure. Service delivery that doesn't take place is nothing other than asset failures where our infrastructure is not coping with the demands placed on it. Asset management is far greater than accounting. Of course, accounting is important. Of course, GRAP 17 is important. But that is not the end-all and be-all of asset management. Asset management is accounting plus a lot of other functions that requires our urgent attention to ensure the full life cycle of the asset is indeed managed. Lack of funding remains a key challenge. Whenever we speak to municipalities, one of the things that is always brought up is a lack of resources. We want to do more, but we've got a lack of resources to maintain, to renew, and to expand our economic infrastructure. But colleagues, there's various funding options available, starting from your own internally generated revenue up to long-term financing, project finance, for you to ensure that economic infrastructure is indeed improved on and expanded on so that you can grow the revenue base of your municipality, so that businesses can be attracted into your municipality, so that jobs can be created, so that we can start to address poverty within the municipalities and to ensure that those communities that we serve are indeed feeling the impact of our asset management practices. Thank you so much.